Welcome back to the Real Estate Insider Podcast, the show where we pull back the curtain on what this business actually looks like when you're building it from the ground up. I'm your host, 𝐓𝐢𝐦𝐻𝐢. After 22 years in the mortgage industry, I've learned that the agents who last aren't the ones chasing shortcuts. They're the ones willing to persist, learn through failure, and stay grounded when things get hard. Today's guest is a perfect example of that. Dan Klein didn't come into real estate through some glamorous, crazy entry point. He came through pressure, persistence, and a lot of uncomfortable growth. His story is about learning boundaries, faith, and how to survive shifting markets without losing yourself in the process. If you're an agent and you're watching this and you're having a tough time navigating tough clients, high interest rates, a seller's market, self-doubt, or whatever you happen to be struggling with, I think this episode's probably going to really hit home for you, mainly because Daniel is just somebody that exemplifies someone who's built this business through grit and cold calling. And he has a deep commitment to learning the hard lessons early, from taking on a $55,000 loss
Oh yeah.
on a flip to setting firm boundaries with the clients. Dan's journey is real, honest, and incredible, and relevant for any agent that's looking to grow in a challenging market. Dan the man.
Yeah,
Thanks for
Dan
being here,
Man
buddy. I
States,
appreciate you.
baby. Let's go. I'm happy to be here. Happy
Good,
to
good.
be
So let's start at the beginning, the ethos of everything. You didn't enter real estate right at the top, right? You came in after an actual demotion. And so that would discourage a lot of people. What was going on in your life at that time? And what kind of pushed you to take that leap of faith, if you will, to really kind of get the career going?
I'd love to start it that way. Pretty much as I've gotten into the business, I've learned that a lot of people would say that are higher up in the business would say I didn't fit the mold of somebody to have the results that I've had. And where I was at the time, I was at a very menial job, just real. I was working at a batteries plus bulbs, and I thought that was going to be the only job I ever had because I was in sales, and it came to it in it was right after I got married, and I thought this was going to be a great job. I was going to provide for my wife, and I was going to make commissions and all this good stuff selling battery, commercial lighting, and commercial batteries. And they demoted me for no reason. I was the only one who had ever built their sales division to the extent that I had built it to. And nobody had ever done the same thing that I had done. They had only gone out and they always came back and said, oh, we couldn't find anybody. But I went and I door knocked. I talked to people directly. I built their business. I built their book of business, and they demoted me. There was no reason, but there was some animosity there. Who knows what that was about? But I found out that a year later, they were selling the business, so they did it to make their books look good. But when that demotion happened, it was definitely like a major shock to my ego. But I needed it because it really woke me up and really made me wonder, like, you know what? If this doesn't work out, like, what am I supposed to do? Like, I don't know I'm going to do. And because it was a pretty decent like pay cut. I mean, it wasn't much, but it was still something. And long story short is I thought about being an electrician and going down. I went down to Phoenix and I saw how the dynamic worked, and I was like, I have no idea what I'm going to do. And I came home, I told my wife, I said, you know what, honey, I don't know what I'm going to do. And she looked at me and she said, why don't you try real estate? I'm like, that's a good idea. And I went to the school. I did my whole process, and I took a little time because I ended up getting a promotion to a manager position. This was in 2018 or end of 2018, beginning of 2019. And things started rolling a little bit. And then I kind of put that on the back. But then push came to shove and COVID happened. And I said, this is the time. And that's when I actually got my license and in 2020. And I just started rolling from there.
That's amazing, man. And you shared with this last time, and I kind of alluded to this in the little song and dance I was doing when we got into this. But talk to me about the $55,000 lesson,
Oh,
because I think that you're not alone. Maybe not in the dollar figure, it could be more, it could be less for people, but you're not alone. All of us in this business at some point in time have taken a burn,
yeah.
and you can grow from that or you can rescind from that. And so I think it's important for your story on that to be told. What happened there?
So what happened there was this was me being in the business for about 6 months. I'm learning. I was with a team at the time. I had left that team, and I was during the time I was door knocking, but the key to this whole thing was like my whole faith in my business, and I keep God first in my business. And I broke down and I said, you know what, God, you got me into this business. I'm fortunate to be here. I was still working my full-time job, and I said, God, where do you want me to go to door knock? Because door knocking, I believed, was going to be my avenue to get in and to cut my teeth in this business. And I said, I'm going to do this the hard way. So then I heard a voice speak to me, and it said, the far northeast corner of Chandler, which is Arizona Avenue in Elliott. I looked around there. There was a neighborhood. I went there on a Saturday. I started at 1 o'clock. I knocked 60 doors. There was one guy who wanted to sell, and that was my first deal. So 3 months later, I finally got that guy under contract, and I didn't know what to do with it because the guy's house was like a hoarder house. It wasn't in the best shape. I said, this is like a flip. And so I went back to the people who I was on their team, and I said, hey, I got this deal. He said, I don't know. I mean, he's paying me a commission, this and that. And they're like, oh yeah. We'll take it, and we'll flip it. So they go, and I knew something was wrong the day that they walked the property. I said, something's fishy here. So then after the deal closed, I made a commission on it. It was very, it wasn't the greatest, but it was still my first commission. It was still my first deal. I'm like, yeah, like I got this. Like, this is great. And I started gaining traction. And then I followed the deal because I said, are they really going to flip this? I said, I wonder what they're going to do with this. Because I knew the price was pretty low compared to what I had in the neighborhood. And sure enough, I saw that they had bought it, and they had immediately sold it like days later for $5,000 more than what I sold it to them for. And I was like, what just happened? So I found out later on, like, there was a method of investors being able to what is called wholesaling the property. And so they got it at such a deep price that they already had the buyer lined up that they could actually go and sell it right as is to another investor. And when I caught wind of this, I was like, yeah, you're not going to get away with 55 grand and not going to show me how to do this. But it took a while for me to kind of to digest what happened, because I had known these guys, and I would have thought this, hey, listen, you found a good deal. We can work something out and we can go from here. But there was
Some sort of partnership, man. I mean, at least, especially guys working in your office on the same team as you, and you being a rookie,
yeah.
you would think they'd take you under their wing and be like, "Hey, Dan, like, we can do this initial sale, but there's a whole process behind this. Let's show you what to do, and we'll split it even."
Yeah, exactly. But their mindset wasn't like that, and that carried on. But it was good to see that, because it showed just like there's something to watch out for in the business. No matter what, you have to be aware. I mean, when it comes to real estate, you're dealing with a high ticket transaction, and even on retail, you have to watch out for, is the buyer really qualified? Do they have all their ducks in a row? And is the seller being completely truthful about this property? Like, I mean, maybe they're concealing. I mean, we bought a property one time, and we were under contract on it, and we found out that they placed the bed up against the wall in a certain way, and they had all these curtains to hide like a 2-inch thick crack in the foundation. Like,
Oh
the
my
wall, like the whole section was like sinking. And I was like, I didn't take that property down, but somebody else did, and it cost them like $20,000 just for the foundation.
That's
So
just absolutely crazy. So, I mean, you referred to the $55,000 lesson as kinda like your tuition, right?
oh
Like,
yeah,
you're going to school, like, "All right, if that's what it cost me, then I guess that's what it
yeah.
cost you." What did you learn from that whole process, and maybe how did it change how you approached clients and transactions?
Ooh, that's a very good question. I knew, well, that's a great question. I would say what I learned from that is that you know what you don't know, you know what you don't know, and then you don't know what you don't know. So if you have people or in your circle that can help you kind of analyze a deal, or you can kind of bounce ideas from, or somebody that, maybe like a mentor, or somebody that you can just say, hey, I have this property here, or I have this seller. What can I do to help them best? That's going to be your best way of figuring out like how to navigate situations you have no idea what to do about. So then you can kind of just bounce ideas. But I also learned that you have to know your numbers. If you do not know your numbers, you'll get cooked.
Well done too, right? Yeah, that's the way it goes. So, when we last talked, one of the things that I really respected about you was your willingness just to kinda walk away from, unproductive
Mhm.
clients and setting boundaries. So, why are setting boundaries so important in your business and what you do?
Like boundaries, as in like with working with other people, or like how I conduct my business.
Yeah, with clients, like when we last talked, you talked about I have specific boundaries with clients. Sometimes I have to let them go.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah,
And
that's a good
it's not fun. I've
yeah.
been there before in the mortgage business too, but I think from a realtor's perspective, it's really intriguing to hear that.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'm anxious to hear kind of your thoughts on why boundaries are so important for you.
Okay. Well, I would say it's twofold. It's the boundaries that you set for yourself and how like what kind of business do you really want to run? Like, do you want to run a business of helping distressed homeowners? Do you want to run a business of luxury homeowners? Do you want to run a business of just, homes that are worth anywhere from, 250 to 550? What's your niche that you want to like focus on? And then from there, exactly like what clients that are going to go into that filter that you want to work with or you don't want to work with. And it's setting a criteria of like an upfront contract, or what we call it is, figuring out what the client wants. Like I told you that one about the lady, she had this $6,500 couch, didn't
Yeah.
even look like I saw this couch, like, we were like 8 homes in of showings and this couch kept coming up and she was saying, I can't, I said that it's not going to fit. This house is not going to work. My furniture's not going to fit. And then because I was a rookie at the time, I was completely green in the business. And I was like, this couch is like becoming a problem. And then I said, can I see the pictures? And then I was talking to some other people in the office at the time, and they had a couple of professional realtors told me, like, hey, why don't you ask her what the size of it is and figure out what the size and all the dimensions. And this thing was 9.5 feet by 11.5 feet and didn't look a dollar worth of $6,500. Nothing special, no tufts. It wasn't leather. It was nothing impressive. But I mean, it's her couch, and if she likes it, then she's happy with it. But she would, when it came down to it, I asked her. I said, "Hey," and interest rates were at like below 4. She was already pre-approved for like I think it was like 3.5 to like 3.75, something like that. And she's looking for her daughter, and her granddaughter. And I said, "Hey," I said, "if it comes down to it, and the furniture doesn't fit the house, but the house makes sense for you price wise and you can get a great interest rate, like what happens next?" She's like, "Well, I guess I'm not buying a house, Dan." I'm like, wow, okay. I'm like, this couch is that important? Yeah, I mean, this couch is not going to be $6,500. It's going to cost you thousands upon thousands of dollars and upwards to a house. Are you okay with that? And so once I kind of figured out she was illogical, I'm like, I don't have any business right now, so maybe I'll take a chance in doing that. So you have to set guidelines to know who you're dealing with, because sometimes people love the idea of going to look at houses and they want to go look, but they're only looking to look. They're not looking to buy. I'm very firm. Even when I did open houses, which I don't do anymore, I will not do a single open house ever again. I can tell you which house it was that I said I'm not going to do an open house, and I'm not good.
Tell
I
the
have.
story. You got
You
me
want to hear
curious
it?
now.
Okay.
Yeah, tell me what happened.
Yeah, this is the icing on the cake. So I had some friends that we knew ask us, hey, because I had posted and they were teaching me in the office to post. But to finish what I was saying before, set your guidelines, describe what the end result is going to look like to your client, and to see if they're comfortable with going all the way to the end with you, if you're working with buyers or if you're working with sellers. And then give a couple hypotheticals and see what they're comfortable with. If you get X amount offer on your house on the market, what happens next? If we don't find the house that is in your price range, like what do you want to do next? Do you want to stop, or do you want to look for something a little bit less? And then, if for people who don't want to or have a house that they need to sell, like what's the number that's going to work for you so you can sell this and move on with your life, and then go from there. And then, yeah. So the open house aspect is, I mean, yeah, they're good, but they're not for me, because too many people came in there looking to look. And I'm very like, hey, if you want help finding a house, or if you want to sell your house, I'm your guy, because we'll run the whole process, we'll run the whole play, and we'll do our best to get you the result. So I had some friends say, because they were teaching us in the office, hey, post on your social media that you have an open house, and then your friends are going to tell their friends, and they're going to be interested in this open house. And so then I went, and I I posted it, and someone said, "Oh, we're interested." And then they were like, "Oh yeah, wow, we're really, really interested. It was like a $700,000 house. And I'm like, maybe they're gonna buy this. Like,
Get your hopes up. Yeah.
yeah, I was like, wow, like, oh, like, okay, this is like the first time someone's like had asked me about the open house. So I said, okay. So then they came to the open house, and and it was a disaster because there was another realtor there, and then she was talking to this person and that person. And then the other listing agent was there, and I'm like, there's like too many chefs in the kitchen here. I'm like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I
It's
don't want to
frustrating.
muddy the waters with anybody. I'm not interested in any animosity. I'm just here to see if I can help somebody. They came, they looked around the house, and they were talking to the listing agent, and he said, yeah, if we were ever to buy, we already have a preferred real estate agent friend that we would work with. And I said to myself, huh, so you've been asking me questions about real estate and then giving me the idea that you're interested in buying and interested more about real estate. And then you come here to this open house and you already have another real estate agent you're going to work with. It's 100% on me because I didn't ask, right? But then when I kind of realized that, I said, you know what? I'm done. I had left the open house right there. I went to Starbucks. I grabbed a coffee. I gathered my thoughts. I said, I'm just going to do this the way I believe it's going to get me the results that I want, which is one, I'm going to cold call and talk to owners directly that I have no ties to, that have no ties to me, that I'm going to find out if they want to sell or not, and I'll help them out. And then I'm going to door knock. And that's what I resolved to do from that moment on. And that was in October, November of 2021. The house was in East Mark, and really nice area here in Mesa, Arizona. And I said, I know what to look for now. I want to work with houses like the first one I did. I want to find homeowners that have problems, that need solutions, and that don't know what to do with their house. And so that's what I resolved to do. I started looking I narrowed it down to the price range, which would fit the criteria what I was looking for. And I just went right after those prospects, the neighborhoods, and made my phone calls. And as time went on, it started to snowball. And when you choose a lane like that, you have to give it like about 90 days, in my opinion. You have to give it 90 days to really start gaining traction, unless you're doing like massive amount of work in a 1 month time frame.
That makes a lot of sense too. One quote you share along the way with me that really stuck with me. I ended up writing it down. I think I told you I need to get a tattoo of it on my
Oh
arm. But
yeah.
if God can use you in this business, if God can use you more in this business than he is now, you'll never have to worry about your business.
Correct.
So where did that come from? Because that's absolute gold right there in shaping your mindset, especially in real estate, mortgage, and really in any sales type gig where
Yeah.
you're it's not all up to you.
Yeah. No matter what in this business, you're gonna have. I don't know why I got these. Someone's flying around here.
Well, fruit flies. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I think that's what it is. I just got these bananas from Trader Joe's, and I think
There you go.
that's fruit flies. So
TJ's bananas.
I no matter what area you are in this business, no matter how small you're starting from or how big you get, you're always going to need faith. God's always going to have to be at the head of it. And before I had taken the plunge into real estate, I was asking all these other realtors like, "Hey, how do you know when you want to go out on your own? How do you know when it's the time to go full time into real estate?" And this was around like August and September of 2021. And kept getting all these signs, even from my Sunday service at church. They were like, "Oh yeah, that was the time. If you're ready to go, like, have faith, do it." But it wasn't clicking. And there was this guy that walked in. His name was John. He came into I was working at the Batteries Plus at the time still. And I was really frustrated. I was like, I don't know what this guy wants, but if he says anything that gets under my skin, I'm done for the day because I'm just overwhelmed and this and that. Turns out to be like the nicest guy.
Right.
And we started talking to him. And I mean, he was 100% a godsend. And I was talking to him, and then the next time he came, I was telling him what I was thinking about doing in my business and like taking the leap. He said, "Listen, Dan, if God can use you more than in you jumping into that business full time than he's currently using you now where you're at, then you'll never have to worry about your business. You can stand on Philippians 4:19 that my God shall supply all of your needs according to his riches and glory." And I said, wow. That's the answer I was looking for. And when he said that, it didn't matter what anybody said, because even after I heard that, like there was people saying, I don't think it's a good idea to get into real estate right now. I said, no, I know that I'm supposed to be in this business. Like when he said that, I said, yeah, I do have a lot of value. You have to believe in yourself to know the value that you bring to people, because you may not know the paperwork in real estate. You may not know every house or the details, but if you're willing to go the extra mile to help somebody, it doesn't matter. You will win if you go the extra mile, because guess what? There's not that many people on the extra mile. So
Yeah, exactly. And I like the Monopoly poster you got in the back there: hustle, execution, discipline, ambition, sacrifice, patience, failure, focus. And I think people don't understand the second word from the bottom there too much. I think we
yeah,
get caught up in the rest of it, but people don't understand the whole failure part of it and how that really kind of leads to success. Um,
100%.
and so 2020, 2021, very different market, right?
Yep.
And we are today 25, 26.
Oh yeah.
Where are buyers missing the mark in your eyes as far as understanding what this market means? Because they hear seller's market, right? So they get super excited, like, I'm going to go out and I'm going to get a crazy good deal. And that's not always the case. So, from your perspective and how you coach your clients, what are they missing right now that you would want to impart onto them? Just maybe for anybody watching that's trying to buy a home here this coming year in 2026.
Yeah, and I can 100% relate to that, and I really feel that this would really help buyers, because I was in the I went from owning nothing to having multiple rentals. What I can say is that if you are curious about buying a house, you need to just find a lender, and tell the lender that I want to buy a house. This is how much I make. This is how much I'm comfortable paying per month. And going from there, I would just say that it's not timing the market. It's time in the market. So if you buy a house today, it's going to be worth more down the road, no matter what. Real estate goes up. So I would say, I think buyers are scared right now, or somebody who's interested in buying but doesn't know how to navigate it, just call a realtor. You don't get charged by working with a realtor.
Right.
And then, the seller pays for it. Yeah, I know there's been changes with that, but it's not really anything to be so concerned about. Like, if you want to buy a house, who better than to work with than a realtor? Like, find a realtor and then find a lender or whatever. The lender can refer you to a preferred realtor that they know that gets the job done and it's going to do a great job. But the problem is it goes back to how I did my first deal. I know what I know. I know what I don't know, which was the paperwork and the whole tactic. And then there was what I don't know. Imagine if you talk to a mortgage lender that told you something that you had no clue about, and you're like, my God, I can buy a house today. Like, the time is now to go into the market. So if you're thinking about going into if somebody that you know or whoever's watching this is thinking about buying a house or buying a house as an investment, it doesn't matter which stage you're at. You just have to start asking questions and really talking to the people who can get you from point A to point B.
That's smart. Reach out to those around you and figure out what you need to do if it's something that you're passionate about.
100%.
On the flip side of that, I've heard this too, not from you in this conversation, but
Mm.
a lot of agents are fairly discouraged. This last year didn't go the way they wanted it to. They're kind of intimidated by 2026. What would you say to an agent right now that's really questioning whether or not this is something they're going to continue doing? Because I know that has happened over the last few years where a lot of agents have bowed out of the market. What would be your advice? 'Cause you got a lot of energy. You're very positive.
Yeah.
And I think success brings that out, like it's encouraging. So for someone that's in a slump, what a wisdom or what would you share with them?
I would say you're in a slump because you're not doing the work that you need to do. If you have time to be in a slump, it's on you. Because anytime I found myself in a slump, I was having a pity party and like, oh well, I didn't do this. Well, during the time that I'm talking to myself saying, oh, I didn't do this, I could be talking to a seller that's wanting to sell their house right now. And like I made a video about this the other day on my Instagram, and I said the best part of being, a business owner, an entrepreneur, because as a realtor, you are an entrepreneur. You're building your real estate business with buyers, sellers, however you work it. Everybody's waiting on you. Everyone's waiting for the value that you bring to the table. And if you're not putting yourself in front of enough people you're not going to get the business. So the faster you get in front of as many people as you can as possible, obviously, if you're marketing, stay within your budget. You don't want to put yourself out of business.
Right.
You want to be the first person in front of the seller, the buyer, or whoever. But you need to put yourself out there. So I would just say, as long as you're doing the work, and even though you may not get the result today, the work that you're putting in today is going to carve your path for tomorrow, and then the next day, and the next day. I've had clients call me that I had worked with 2 years before, and they're like, "Hey, Dan, I'm ready to sell. I have a property. I don't know if you're interested in buying it." And I'm like, "Of course I am. Yeah, because I did the work and I made the impression." So just obviously make sure that you're out there doing the work. Because if you have time to be in a slump, or if you have time to feel discouraged, you're wasting your time, because that doesn't pay the bills.
Man, you got some great one-liners, buddy. This is absolute gold.
Trust me,
Um,
I've been through my slumps. I can help
so
somebody.
and I
No,
think that's just it, Dan. I mean, the authenticity that you have with this stuff. I mean, you're not speaking it from a high, ivory tower. Like, you've walked it and you've lived it.
yeah.
So, I think it's important for people to understand that even though success is great,
Mhm.
like we talked about in the post here, failure happens, and that's part of the whole
Oh,
equation.
yeah. And you know
So
what? I'm glad you brought that up, and that's a great point. If you're not failing, you're not doing the work. If you lose a listing or if you lose a buyer, you have to know that. And this is how. And my wife always tells me this. She said, "If the deal doesn't work out, it wasn't God's best." So, and she's never been wrong. She's never been wrong with
she's gonna
that.
like that part of the show
I
too.
know,
Yeah.
right? Right. So you have to know when to let go. So then if you can let go of what's not working, you can receive what will work. It's just like I failed because I wouldn't even consider fail when I had took that loss of like 55K. It was a complete learning lesson, because then I was like, wow, I could have had that. But now I've learned. So what may seem like a failure and cause you to feel angry and have resentment and all this other stuff, or maybe somebody else gets the listing over you. Okay, well, what could I have done better? That's what I was taught. Ask yourself, if you didn't get the deal, what could I have done better?
And I think along those lines, I'm gonna go to a place that might make some people uncomfortable. I know I've dealt
Well,
with
let's
it, but
go.
I'm almost 100% sure you dealt with it. So what you just said about losing a deal, losing a buyer, losing a seller, I lose clients too in the mortgage industry. It just happens. It's a very much a
Yeah.
competitive dog eat dog world. How do you handle it when it's somebody you know personally, like a
That
friend
I
or a
need to
family
deal
member,
with.
that they decide I'm not going with Dan, I'm going with somebody else?
I can't say I can relate to that. I can't.
Wow.
Yeah, I
Then
can't
you
say.
are the man, Dan.
Yeah.
That works out great.
Well, because you know why? I really do believe, like, to my core, like, I guess this is, I don't, maybe we're chartering uncomfortable territory.
Wasn't in the
Right?
script. Yeah,
Uh,
so yeah.
yeah. So I prescribe to the belief that if I can work with somebody that has no idea who I am and I have no idea who they are, but we can come to an agreement, we can have a conversation. I let them know my intentions. Like when I buy a rental property or if I buy an investment property, if I can meet somebody that has no idea who I am, because that was the biggest thing I was scared of in this business, because it was told to me when I went for the interview, like, because they were like interviewing agents to onboard. They said, "Well, how many people do you have in your phone? Like, how many numbers of people do you have in your phone? Like, how many people do you know?" I'm like, "Well, I was kind of new to Arizona. I knew some people, but I didn't feel confident to like talk to people. I asked them, 'Hey, do you want to sell your house with me? And then so I can make a commission, and then I can help you find the next house and make commission on that.'" To me, that was too salesy. That was too like, I don't know. I didn't prescribe to that belief. And then they told me, they said, "Well, if you don't know that many people," because it was almost like a proposed to me like a multi-level marketing thing. I was like, "If you don't know that many people, then you're going to have to operate off of all cold business. You're going to have to do cold leads." I'm like, "What does that mean?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "This is going to be real hard. It's going to be real hard." And you know what's funny? All my business is cold business. I bought properties in hours. I bought properties in days. I've worked with sellers and that are out of the state that I've never even met in person. They sold me their house over the phone. And I just think that if you're really good in this business, you can work with everybody, and the people who know you that are actually seeing what you're doing, they'll come to you when they're ready or when they choose to believe that your efforts are like, wow, like he's doing actual business. He's doing great. I've had friends buy with me, but it was only a couple of times because I don't want to muddy the waters because everyone's got their opinion. They're like, oh, well, he didn't do this or he didn't do that. But,
Right.
you
Yeah, and
know,
I think it's
everyone's,
re really think it's important what you just shared too about cold business and being successful there because you're not alone. There's a lot of people that start off in this and they look at monetizing relationships because that's what we're taught in sales training. I mean, we in mortgage and in real estate, it's very synonymous and it's like, "Hey, who do you know? Who do you know?" And it
yeah.
is an awkward conversation to go to a family member and be like, "Hey, you wanna refi your house with me?" So it's kinda like, "Hey, I like you, Jared, but I
Yeah.
don't know, man. You're my nephew."
Yeah.
So it can be a little strange because it's very personal, right?
Yeah.
There's a you're gonna pull back the sheet and you're gonna see everything.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it can muddy the waters, but I think it's important because not everyone wants to do that or feel comfortable with that.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you shared that because cold business is still business and you can build a great business and you're doing that.
Yeah.
So I think it's really valuable. All right, last question. Last
Yeah.
question. I asked this to everybody, but I always get a really unique response. So I'm anxious to hear what you have to say. We're at a celebration of life for you,
Mm.
way, way out in the future.
Wow.
Everyone's passing around a mic, sharing different stories about Dan. What do you want the consistent theme to be? What do you want people to say about you when you're gone?
He kept God first in his business, and it definitely showed.
Probably the
Yeah.
fastest response I've gotten on that one since I've been doing this. That's great, man.
I mean, the only reason why I'm in this business is because God worked through my wife. I kept God first in this business, and I haven't gone without. And and anytime I didn't have any business, it was because I wasn't doing the work. And like, I'm not saying that everything about God is business and this and that. Yeah, no, there's a lot of other factors with that. However, like I want my business to be a reflection of that if you keep God first and you ask God for guidance and you ask him for wisdom, he'll bless every area of your life. And and that's what's changed my life. And I'll say this. We're going deep here.
Good.
Someone told me, and this was in 2015. They told me, they said, Dan, if you believe in God, you believe in Jesus, all this, then the next step is baptism. And I felt like I was being pressured, but I was like, but when they said it only takes one person to say one thing. It's the weirdest thing. It's like we're all looking for answers. And sometimes it takes one person to say one thing. And he said, getting baptized is an inward or an outward expression of the change that's happened inside you from your belief in God and Jesus. And I was like, wow. I'm like, I'm in. Like, I'm sold. So yeah, I would say that's what I like people to say.
That's beautiful, man.
And hopefully they say, hey, Dan was a good guy to work in business with. He got me good deals, and I'm glad we worked with him.
It's perfect, man.
Yeah.
It's a funny thing to think about because with what you do, you're impacting lives along the way.
Oh yeah.
Unlike not knocking the battery thing, but when you're selling a home, it's got a more of an impact on a family for the most part,
Big
right?
time. Yeah. I mean, no one goes, hey, you see that smoke detector? The battery guy.
Dan sold me one heck of a smoke detector.
It's like, we won't forget about Dan. That 10-year smoke detector battery has not gone out, and he said it would last 10 years.
When it
Nobody's
starts to
talking.
beep, they'll give you a call.
Yeah.
Dan, where can people find you, man? How can they get a hold of you if they want to work with you?
They can follow me on Instagram at Dan the Man Estates. That's the best way to follow me or get in touch with me. I'm on there pretty often. I'm also on TikTok at Dan the Man Estates, doing all kinds of crazy stuff. You'll see me dealing with crazy houses, all that stuff. So if you got any problem properties, I'd love to take a look at them, and I'll be more than happy to help you.
Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for
Listeners,
having me.
absolutely, man. Listeners,
Yeah.
thank you for joining us. If you like stories like this, you find this interesting or valuable, go ahead and hit like and subscribe. This has been the Real Estate Insider podcast. Once again, my name is Jared Sawyer. Goodbye and take care.
All right. See ya.